Been to many islands in Croatia, but this, I never set foot on this island before. Look at the color of the water. I definitely love it. Today we are gonna take you on a small ferry trip. We are now standing on the port in Šibenik. And today what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a self-catering island hopping trip with Jadrolinja. And this is probably the cheapest way you can get a boat excursion from this area, but I'm gonna explain you more when we get on board. So please follow me on board the ferry. So it's a very small car ferry we're on. As you can see, the cars are lined up here. Oh, I think they're gonna give it some new vehicles on the island. Let's see if they wanna let us in. So there's a small inside area. Yes, we're out. We found our spots, and then we just wait for the departure time. Bird number 9, so probably the port is going to be relatively big when they're finished here. Maybe they're planning more ferry lines because there's not that many ferry lines from Šibenik now. You have this one going to these islands out here, which runs only 3 times a day or something, max 2-3 times a day max, and then you have the one going to Vodice and stopping on Prdović and a few other islands, and then you have some fast ferries. So I don't know why they need all these berths, but probably they have some plans. So now we are sailing into the St. Anthony Channel, which is the only way by sea to get into Šibenik. And if you have seen our video about Šibenik, you know that we went this way also when we visited the St. Nicholas Fortress, which we will also pass by a little bit later today. But I simply want to compare how it was to do this self-catering trip compared to these organized tours. So, which is one of the reasons why we are going on with this Jadrolinja ferry to the islands today, just to see if that's a valid alternative to going with these tour boats. 2 towers, which was protecting the channel here, and later when they built the St. Nicholas Fortress, these towers was basically not more in use and was removed. But even during the Second World War, you have the tunnel openings. This is actually the boat to St. Nicholas Fortress. So you have the tunnels over here, which was built by the Germans. So there's one tunnel entrance here on the left side, and the other one will appear here on the right side. So basically they would hide their military ships in there during the Second World War. And of course all this area we are looking at now, you can easily visit that from Šibenik. There's walking paths up here, you can go with a bike. Really great nature area, so something to consider. So now we're closing up on the St. Nicholas Fortress, where we went with the excursion boat. That one basically moored directly in the middle of the fortress, and we went in to have a look at the fortress and basically was on the top also. And for that trip we paid €21. And just to put in perspective, the ferry trip we're doing today, which would basically at least allow us to see St. Nicholas Fortress from the outside like we are doing now, but also give us a trip out where we can see a lot of the islands in the Šibenik archipelago and actually stop at two of the islands. That trip is going to cost us return €10. So I hope my conclusion end of the day is that this trip here we are on now is better value. So the first island we can see now, which we are passing, that's actually Sladin, and this ferry route on some weekdays it would also stop in Sladin. I think half of the weekdays or something like that, it would sail into the bay here in Sladin and do a 5-minute stop and have people get off and on the ferry if they need to do that. And I think Sladin has a little bit less than 300 people living there whole year, around 280 or something like that. And during summer season, the population would increase to around 1,500. And maybe also another interesting thing about Sladin, it's known as the Islands of the Coral, because since the 15th century they have been harvesting red coral. The citizens, there's also a museum on the island about coral, so very unique. Now in front of us is the island Obunjan, which has a resort on it, a holiday resort with glamping and all kinds of other stuff. So that's definitely something which could be interesting if you want to try to stay on an island where basically there's nothing except the resort. That's basically the case here. And the other island to the right, we're going to pass in this strait. I think it's called Smajan or something like that. Yeah, Smajan. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit about when we were sailing at Kornati, where you also went in between these narrow straits between the island. It was a little bit tighter, more tight at Kornati, but similar. I mean, everybody hears about the archipelago of Zadar because it has the Kornati Islands and the Telaščica nature park. So that's basically the most famous archipelago in Croatia. But the Šibenik one is quite interesting also because it has actually 249 islands and islets. So quite impressive. So sailing around here, seeing all these islands, it's really a neat thing. But not many of them, actually only I think 7 or 8 in the archipelago of Šibenik are actually inhabited. And we're gonna visit 2 of them today, so pretty good, 25%. And now we are passing by island Mishak Mali, and we are gonna go in between that one, and then there's an island on the other side. Actually, I'm gonna go around. So the island on the other side is Mishak Valley. So basically we're sailing in between them. I think already there, the one we see in the background is Cabria, where we're actually going to go, but we have to kind of circle around the island before we get to the port area. So if anybody's looking to buy a private island, as I said, lots of them here are not inhabited. Now we're just going to film down here. Capri is the one just here in front of me, in front of us. Where we're going now, that one has around 190 people living on the island the whole year. Of course, during summer there's way more people. But what's quite interesting is the name of the island. Capri comes from capari or capers, which is the small green spices, round ones which looks like peas, which you put on various dishes. They grow abundantly here on the island, and that's why it got the name Capri. Pretty big island. It's around 7 square kilometers, has 25 kilometers of coastal line. So there's plenty of space for the 189 people living here all year round. They don't have to fight about each corner. There's definitely enough space. But all of them actually live in the same, around the same village where the ferry is going to arrive. We're going to see that a bit later. I didn't bring any swimming equipment, so we have to skip that today. But no doubt would be great jumping in here today. And this looks to be close to the vibrant area of the village. I see a sign saying Grill Pizza Bakery. This is exactly where it happens. Look at the color of the water. I definitely love it. Now you basically have an idea if that's a place you want to spend your holiday. I mean, definitely see here with the sailing boats, anchor up in the bay. Not bad at all. Just gotta go down here. Now we can see a lot of the people actually decided to get off the boat here. My eye. So now we get a bit closer look at the city. See more or less all the boats, all the cars are going up here in Capri. But really looks nice here. Island we have here is Island Kalkan. This one is not inhabited, but in this direction on the island there's a few islets you can go in. There's a small strait in there which has a very nice blue lagoon, very popular place for sailing boats to anchor up. And I'm pretty sure some of the day trips You can book from Šibenik, Rodice and other places that they would actually take you out to see that lagoon. Maybe even you can go for a swim. And as you can see here in front of me, you see the stone, stacked up stones, which means basically somebody back in many years back, few hundred years back, were doing agriculture here, and this was how they made the fields. So they stacked up the stones and they were growing vegetables, you know, whatever they could grow in between, and probably most likely they also had a lot of sheep on these islands. That was a common thing also. Now we are almost at island Syria. I don't know if it's possible to see, but there's a lot of islands out, hardly visible from here. But that's basically the Kornati Islands or the Sadar Archipelago. So island Syria here is fairly close to that. With all the islands we saw today, you know, you kind of can imagine why this area around Šibenik, Sadar, why that's really a paradise for sailors. You have enormous amount of small islands and islets, with so many bays where you can anchor up for the night. You have restaurants on remote, uninhabited islands where you can anchor up and get some food. So many options. It's a bit windy, so I don't know if you can hear me or see me, but see the bay. But this is basically where we're gonna have a stop now, 45 minutes before the ferry returns. So we're gonna explore a little bit the village in here. Syria is the furthest away from Šibenik of the inhabited islands. It's 22 kilometers roughly from Šibenik, and the island doesn't have a huge population. Last time they counted it was 103, but that was back in 2011, so most probably it's less than that. But of course during summer the population grow because lots of people have a holiday house over here and also tourists come here. The ferry at the small dock in here, I mean, it's really not a big place. It's way smaller than the place we saw on Capri. So many cars on this island, also uphill. You don't see it from here. I didn't expect that, I must say. There is a few other villages, which is why there's a bus stop here, but actually having a bus running here, pretty impressive. And that's also why you see the road going up there. This is definitely a place I've never been before. I've been to many islands in Croatia, but this, I never set foot on this island before. No, but what really surprised me, you know, was that they have a bus stop here. I mean, if the last time they counted the population, as I said before in the video, was 103 people living here wholly around. And that was counted in 2011, so probably today it might be less. And, you know, thinking that they would actually operate a bus line for that. You would think. And also I was surprised, I said that when I was filming up there, that there's so many cars here.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect that. And then of course they have Mali Ivan market. So there is some booming business going on here. Although he looks very close now, I would say. And there's actually a konoba 10 minutes walking from here. I just love when houses are fixed up like the stone house over there. It just looks amazing. But that's basically it, I think.
Yeah, this is the end of
That's the end of
port and town, basically.
port and town, and then you have here, what do I say here? Some bays, Uvala, Mikkavitsa, Uvala, Tantiska, Velagla. That's probably the highest point. I think that's around 130 meters, so you can walk to that. And then you have a small selo, a church, Lokva, I guess that's, so you know, a lot of different places you can walk to from here. But to be honest, with 30 degrees, I don't think I'd feel up for that. And anyway, we have a ferry to catch going in the opposite direction at 2:10, I think. I was kind of thinking that there was a booming coffee bar where we could sit, but I haven't noticed anything like that. Nope, I think that's it. Well, you definitely need a car if you go here, I guess. So we are now back in Capri on the way back with the ferry, and already now you see there's a few more boats in the anchoring up in the bay.
Like this mountain type of places.
Well, yeah, we don't like the extreme temperature in Colorado. It's really hot.
We're just gonna go back outside. You see we have new passengers coming on board with their luggage. But really nice little port here in Capri. So the difference here between Capri and Sirte, where we just went, is that basically, as far as I understood it, first of all, Capri here has twice the population, and also all of them is here in this village here at the port, whereas on Sirte, where we were before, everything is scattered in multiple places, which was also probably why we didn't find anything which was open there except for a tiny market. There was no coffee bar, there was no nothing. So here there's definitely more options. We are still not back in Šibenik. Now we are passing, I think it's Mali, Veli, Mishnyak Island. One is here on this side, and the other one is just over here. The city of Šibenik is welcoming us back. So now we basically finished the return trip here from Šibenik to Island Capri and Island Sirte, where we wanted to test if this was a valid alternative option to the excursion boat, simply to do a catering trips like we did. As I mentioned earlier, we paid €10, €10.20 per person to do the round trip, so really cheap compared to the other tour boats you can take from here. So what's my conclusion? We got off in Syria, which was the island furthest out, and we hadn't spent an hour out there before the ferry returns. I would say that was a mistake. There's nothing you can do in Syria. So if you want to do this boat, I think it's a good value for money. You should then get off in Capri. There's much more to see from what we could see from when the ferry stopped up there. So I think if you go with that one, doing this self-catering, definitely an option. So I would highly recommend it. Anyway, this was basically all from the video. Please give it a like, subscribe to our channel where you have lots of other videos about traveling around in Croatia, or from Šibenik, from Zadar, from Dubrovnik, from Split, all kinds of places. So please check it out. And till the next one, thank you.